York is the global head of Goldman Sachs Wealth Management. He is a member of the management committee and began his career covering clients in New York and continues in that capacity today. Mr. York joined Goldman Sachs in 1986 in New York as a private wealth advisor. He was named managing director in 1996 and partner in 2000 and is a proud alum of the University of North Carolina, as is my co-host Matt Doherty. And great to have you both here.
Go
today.
Heels.
Go Heels.
I'm a Purdue grad, so I'm just over here.
That's okay. That's okay. We respect Purdue.
Always happy to talk about basketball.
Yeah, that's right. But on this show, we're going to talk leadership. Okay. And Tucker, you've been at Goldman. My brother works for you at Goldman Sachs, my brother John, since 1986, the premier world leader in investment banking. What changes have you seen as you've gone from a wealth manager to now a director, managing director at the firm?
Thanks, Matt. That's generous comments about Goldman Sachs. By the way, I still am a wealth manager, and I think especially as we talk about leadership, I think it's the practicing, the continuing the practice is an important part of things. But I'm very fortunate. I feel very fortunate that I've been at the same place, literally since I got out of business school. And I will tell you that was not the plan. Mm-hmm. That was not the plan. I've seen a lot of changes. But if you think about 37 years, there's been a lot of changes everywhere. And the firm has actually been around since 1869.
Wow.
And so I think like any entity, organization, certainly a for-profit company, to be around that long, part of it is, frankly, the ability to not only deal with change, but I would argue embrace change and sort that out for the future.
Talk about change. We see different generations come in. We're in our 60s.
We are?
Yeah, news alert.
Yes.
You notice I said 60, so it could be 61 or 69. I think
Let's
we're
do that
both
for a
on
while.
The lower end.
Yeah.
How do you stay current, especially in attracting talent? Because at the end of the day, we need talent on our teams, whether you're in sports or business. How do you stay current in attracting good talent and retaining good talent?
Yeah, and I think that question was the same 35 years ago. The answers are different to it, meaning the essential part of that. I think we are absolutely, as a service business, people business, we're in the talent management business, and making sure that not only do you get the best people, it's do you retain the best people over the long term. I mean, you mentioned your brother. He's been with us only 23 years. That's an amazing number. If you think about corporate America, to have people around that long, and we have well over 500 people that have been there more than a quarter century. I'm in the quarter century club, and so I think basically people want to be a valued member of a winning team. At the end of the day, that's really what people want. That's what I want, and I think the more you kind of approach it from that lens. While you're still making sure that it works for all the other important constituencies, shareholders, very important, clients, business. We don't have clients, we have nothing else. And so putting that all together, I think, that's if you will the mixture we're trying to keep correct.
And I'm just curious too, like because Goldman has really been at the top of the game through all of this. So how do you manage that change? How do you stay competitive? And especially through some of these events we've had COVID, we've had 9/11. I mean, what's kind of the Goldman philosophy up there?
Yeah, I think, and we could go on to the global financial crisis. Right. We could go back to the '87 market crash, which happened in my first full year. I mean, stuff is going to happen. You can't predict when, but you can predict that stuff will happen. And I think it's basically. For us, we practice a lot of broad concepts around risk management. And so while there's all kinds of projections about the good things that can happen, I would say we obsess about the bad things that could happen and make sure that we're prepared in these circumstances what would happen. So you mentioned 9/11, which from a pure market perspective, arguably was not predictable, could from a political perspective. And yet, after that happened, our clients did not sell stocks. Now, a lot of stocks were sold, and I'm talking about on a net basis. But to me, I was very proud of that because it meant that our people had been in dialogue before these events to say, stocks are risky, stocks could go down. If you are overweighted in those, we should review that. And by the way, same thing happened in March of 2020 for COVID. It was the exact same thing. All of a sudden it was there, markets went way down, and on an aggregate basis, we had been in dialogues with clients so that they stayed the course, which of course ultimately was the right thing.
A lot of people listening, watching, run small to mid-sized companies. You, big scale at Goldman, worldwide, international. How do you plan for crisis, and what is the process? Like, do you meet? How do you manage it? And then how do you communicate to your team? What advice would you give a small to mid-sized company to, be like, 9/11 could happen, COVID could happen. How do you communicate that to the team?
I feel like I started at a small company because there were, I think, 5,000 people when I started. It's much bigger today. And so I probably have lost a bit of that perspective, even though I still feel like we're small. Mm-hmm. But what has been very helpful for me from running a business, but being part of Goldman, is that we have a relatively small number of people whose job it is to think about these things.
Right.
Which allows for most of the rest of us to be able to be focused totally on clients.
And stay positive.
And stay positive, but also be present.
Right.
Because when this stuff is happening, that's when the clients need to speak to you.
Yep.
And if you're spending the time, oh, you know what, I don't have power over here, I have to figure out how to get power, or we have to figure out how to get our people out of harm's way, whatever it is, then that's going to take away from that approach. So I think it's kind of like any team, different people have their jobs to do, and it's being clear during times when it's not stressful to say, okay, what are the jobs, who's responsible, and then how do we think about things?
One common theme I hear from you and some of the other people that we've talked to on this show is think about the client or the customer. And that's really your focus. And I think that's what makes a successful business is to constantly think about that, making sure their needs are met, communication. Yeah. How would you describe that relationship?
No, it's waking up in the morning thinking about the client. And you can take that too far because there's other important things in life. I don't discount that. But the notion that we don't have anything if we don't have the clients. Mm-hmm. You just have to kind of start with that. Although, Jane, I think about this a lot. I really do think there's three stools to our business, and I spend a lot of time on making sure that those are cared for evenly, such that you're not overweighting one because it'll come to the detriment of the other two. So it's the clients first and foremost. As I said, there's no question about that. But it's also the people. And I actually think of our people as clients, a derivative of that as clients. Yes. Because guess what? If the people leave, and our business is about long-term relationships, people don't like that when that's disrupted for whatever reason. And so when people leave, clients don't like that, which means I'm in trouble on that. And so making sure you have the right people, and I think about a lot of things, but low turnover is one of them because that's the manifestation of people are happy, satisfied, feel fulfilled in what they do. And then the third thing is shareholders. If the enterprise is clients are happy, people are happy, but it doesn't generate a profitability where people want to continue to sustain that model, and the whole thing doesn't work. And so all of these things I think are important and need to be in the kind of right kind of balance for long-term sustainability.
Just real quick follow-up. Do you find you handle stress better as your career went on?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's a little bit like taking risk. And if you are educated about the risk, you will ultimately be comfortable with taking more of it than would otherwise be the case. And I do believe, and markets show you that there's a risk-reward element, i.e. over time, and especially if you stretch it out 5 years, 10 years, but what about 30 years in investment horizons? Stocks, arguably, Warren Buffett would say, stocks in the long run are not risky. Cash is risky because you'll lose from inflation, and the reverse is true for the short run. So I think as you gain in years and experience, you do have a broader perspective of things, and you're able to kind of look at things more from that approach. I've seen this before, I've done this, whatever. It ultimately worked out. And because I saw this before, and because I saw the '87 market crash, I always made sure I had some amount of cash.
Okay.
I was, I think these are the things that allow you to be more thoughtful, because ultimately this will end. And yet, in your gut, be able to kind of live with the anxiety of the current moment.
Thank you so much, Tucker.
Yeah.
Tucker, thanks.
So interesting.
Thank you, guys. It's great to be with you. I really appreciate what you're doing, and thanks for having me.
Appreciate it.